Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for another edition of the Free Exchange of Ideas with Donovan and John. We are here to help you out. Now, let's just get to it.
Thanks for coming back to another edition of the Free Exchange of Ideas with Donovan and John. Today, we are actually going to talk about fostering and adoption. Donovan, as I have said before, fostered and adopted it's 3 children, right?
Three
Yeah,
children.
three children.
Three
So,
amazing.
what's that?
It's the 3 amazing kids, and I love them.
I have no doubt of that. What we are going to do moving forward from this point is we're going to do a study on civics. We'll just be doing civics for a while, different kinds of civics. What I want to do is read you the definition from vocabulary.com. It says civics. The study of citizenship is called civics. If your school offers a civics class, you can learn about the importance of things like voting and paying taxes. I'm sorry that you have to learn about paying taxes that way. It's sad. Student government can teach you about civics, and so can certain social studies lessons and classes that a country's new citizens sometimes might take. Civics can teach you about the rights granted to citizens as well as their responsibilities as citizens, such as serving on juries and engaging in the political process. The word civics was an American English invention modeled on politics from the Latin civicus, of a citizen. So that's what we're going to try and do. We're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Donovan's travels through foster and then into adoption. And we'll talk about other civics like military service is considered a civic duty. Religious civics in that serving in soup lines or reaching out to your local economy and things like that. And we're going to do a whole bunch of stuff on that because honestly, nobody's teaching that anymore. And I think we've lost as a people, I think we have lost what civics is. We've certainly, in my opinion, lost the desire to be civic minded. And I want you to understand what civic minded means. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to really just pretty much drop this in Donovan's lap and let him describe to you his travels, travails, and triumphs through the foster system and into adoption. Donovan?
Hi there, guys, everyone. It's me, Donovan, again. One of the big things, the history to get the context. I've been wanting to adopt a child ever since, I guess, a young adult in my 20s. And my point of view is there's so many great kids without parents or families out there. And there are lots of them, unfortunately, and who, through no fault of their own, mostly, end up in the system for whatever reason. And I'd always wanted to adopt out of the country. And back on this, even further back, well, not further back because I was in my 20s before that, but in Afghanistan, there were like gangs of orphan children just roaming around. I saw a TV special, they did a documentary on this thing, and they showed all these kids. And I'd always been interested in Afghanistan because I think the culture and the people there are just beautiful. You get children with like blue eyes and blonde hair, but all Asian features. You get the olive skin and the green eyes and the black hair and the brown hair. Just beautiful, beautiful people. And I was like, I want one of those. And so when we got married, my wife and I, we tried for like a year and a half to have a kid. It ended up being me. And we kind of looked into adopting abroad. Afghanistan, we learned, doesn't do adoptions. They do guardianships, and only for Muslims. So I kind of knocked us out. So no children from Afghanistan for me, apparently. And then we looked at some other countries. Guatemala is a rather relatively easier one to adopt from, and one of the cheapest as well. Which I hate to say that. You're not buying a child; you're paying for the services. But it's one of the things we learned was if you adopt from abroad, it's not only expensive, it's also very time consuming. And depending on the country, that varies. Typically, you have to travel to the country, obviously, to get the kid. And sometimes you could be there for a week, 2 weeks to a month, is some of the stories I've heard from people, friends of mine, of ours, who had adopted from abroad. So you're there, you flew there, you're paying to be there, you're not working, you're not making any money, you're just spending money the whole time you're there. I guess now maybe people can work from abroad now, like compared to 20 odd years ago. But that's what you're doing. You're taking time off work, depending on your job. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. So which is also expensive. And obviously you got to pay plane ticket back for you and your child or children, depending on how it goes for you, what you're doing. So, and then you come back to the United States with your kid, and which is great. I totally support adopting from abroad. The one, and I guess this was kind of what kicked me into wanting to adopt from abroad. I had a story I read a story on Facebook many years ago, and the journalist was, and also a photojournalist as well, was taking pictures of these homeless children in these other countries. And it's horrific. I mean, I get misty eyed talking about it and thinking about it. And there was this little girl and her brother who was even younger. And he was like, she takes care of him. She was like 8 and he was like 4 or 5 or something like that. And the journalist was talking to her, and he's like, what do you do? You like that? How do you sleep at night? And she replied, I don't sleep at night. That's when bad things happen. And it just breaks my heart, thinking about it. That was 20 odd years ago. Who knows where she's at? I mean, I don't know if she's still alive at all or anything like that, which is horrible. And the system that we have here in the United States, not perfect by any means. And there are people, people are people, and there's people who are really great, and there's people not so great out there. And to think that there are children out there like that, fighting on their own, using 2-liter bottles as a pillow, was one of the kids in that same article was using, and stuff like that. It just breaks my heart that that's out there, and I can't save them all. I always say that. I can't, but we as a society, whether here our own children or even abroad, there's no reason. Our society, the United States of America, can definitely do things about that to help those children, whether through churches and NGOs and stuff like that, going out there, educating them, bringing them in off the street, setting them up for adoption, whether in their country or bringing them here to the U.S. I am all for. I think it's horrible that the world we live in, this modern world in the 21st century, that exists. A lot of them end up drugs, sex trafficking, or dead. And it's a sad reality of the world we're in right now. So I always joke, though, I adopted 3, so I did my share. The rest of you got to step up. But so the foster care system here in the United States is a really amazing system. I can only talk about it from my experience in California. It's different in other states, my understanding. So you definitely have to, if you're interested in doing that, look into that. So me and my wife at the time, we looked into adopting abroad, looked at the difficulties of that. And then she said, well, why don't we do foster care? A friend of ours had recently adopted a foster child. And so then we looked into that, and I knew of the foster system, but that was about it. I didn't have, I had no thoughts on the foster system whatsoever. Looked into it. You take the classes are free. I think there's like 8 of them. You'd have to go to once a month for a few months. They're a few hours long. I think maybe 2 hours, maybe 2 to 3. Once you get through the classes and get certified, you are able to adopt any child in the foster system throughout the United States. Free. It's free to take the classes. Costs nothing to adopt a child. When you adopt a child through foster care, depending on the age and depending on, I guess, mental, emotional, physical, how shall I say,
Needs.
conditions of the children. You know, some children are more involved than others. I think children are involved nonetheless, no matter what. There's no such thing as a perfect child by any means. And these kids come in there, you know, depending on their age, you know, somewhat traumatized even. So like you get so much money depending, like, you know, for say a child who has Down syndrome, you get a monthly stipend, and depending on what that child's needs are, it depends on how much money you get per that child per month. So if you get, like, you know, a perfectly healthy child, you get less money, but you still get money per month. And you get that money for as long as you're fostering that child. My wife and I did what's called foster adopt. So we got paired with a child that we were planning to adopt. And that's how that slightly, it's the same thing, but slightly different, because we're looking to adopt a child from foster care. So there's two, you could foster. Some people are really great at it. The woman we adopted my daughter from, who was fostering her, was a foster parent and just has children rotate through her house till they find someone or move on or whatever. She was great and amazing. And there's a number of other families and couples like that in Santa Clara County, where I'm from. So, which is great. You know, it's not perfect necessarily. You hear stories, the horror stories of what happens of kids in the foster care system a lot. So, like I said, not a perfect system, but it's a really damn good system. One of the things that you get from foster care that you don't get when you adopt from abroad is when you adopt from a child from foster care, you get the full background. So here's what we know about the child. Here's what we know about the mother and the father and anyone else that was involved in that child's life. So you get this full-on background check history of what's going on with that kid. So when you adopt from abroad, you get none of that. Here's your kid, so long, thank you for the money, and you're off. So anything that happens with that child is totally on you, whether it's health insurance or anything like that, school, obviously school's separate, but so it's all on you. That child is your child. The foster care system sets you up, like if there's anything wrong, if your child's injured, they have to be accepted at any hospital no matter what. And their health insurance is covered through the state and stuff like that. Any kind of therapy, physical, emotional, mental, covered through the state, or they help pay that as well. Things like that. One of the big things that me and my wife at the time had talked about doing was adopting an older child, a teenager. So because the older kids don't get adopted out, obviously, as much as the younger children's and toddlers and babies. So one of the things, at least in California, so if you adopt a teenager and they graduate high school, if they get accepted to college, any college whatsoever, the state will pay for them to go to college as an incentive to adopt older kids in the system. So, which I thought was great. So whether your kid goes to Gavilan College, like me and John, or San Jose State, Berkeley, you know, USC, Harvard, or Princeton, this state will pay for them to go there. So that was a really neat thing. I thought I can't vouch for other states, but California does that.
Is that only as their foster or also adopted?
If you adopt them.
Okay.
If you adopt them. I actually don't know what happens if they age out. That I'll have to look into that. I don't know what happens if they age out, if they go to college and stuff like that. I know they did recently, or I guess it was probably like a decade ago. They did some things like one of the classes we were in, some of the college students from foster care had made a video, I think over at West Valley. And they showed that, and they were interviewing former foster kids. They'd age out of the system and were in college, and you're hearing their stories. So one of them was talking about, what happens, when the holidays come and everyone goes home for the holidays, right? They go home to their families.
Right.
Foster kids, you don't have families to go home to, and you don't necessarily go back to your foster parent or whoever watched you, right? So, and this one kid was talking about how they were sneaking in and out of the dorm and like scrounging for food and stuff like that. So California passed a law where if a foster child is a college student, no matter where they're at a university system, they have to keep the dorm open and provide them with food and everything else like that, the basics to stay there if they don't have anywhere else to go. Which you kind of think is kind of like, well, obviously, but apparently not obvious. So I think a lot of foster kids get overlooked, right? So that's at least in California, we fixed that. And like I said, it's not a perfect system by any means, but it's a really, really great system. And they up the age for those who aged out for them to keep getting like healthcare and a stipend and stuff like that to live, instead of like, okay, you're 18, you're on the street. Good luck. So which
it used to be like that. Absolutely.
Which is how the system was and still is my understanding in other states. So like I said, I can't vouch for other states, but I'm just telling you what happens in California because that's what I know. We met our daughter, her name's Madison, and she was 3 months old when we got her. Super easy kid. she was a great baby, and a great kid. We adopted. So when we adopted Maddie, they told us that the mother was maybe pregnant again, and if she was, we were interested in adopting the sibling. And we were like, yes, absolutely. And me being a guy, I know I want a son. I wanted a son. So it's funny. My Melinda and Maddie and my in-laws, her parents, went to church one day, and they had just left, maybe 5 minutes when I got a phone call, and it was the foster. I'm blanking out what they were called. The social worker who helped us with Maddie was like, "Hey, so Maddie's mother had another baby. It's a boy. Do you want him?" And I'm like, yes. So when Mindy got back from church, I was kind of like, oh yeah, social worker called, and they had, Maddie's mother had another baby. They asked if we wanted it. I said, well, we think about it and call him back. She said, what? I'm like, no, I said yes. As John knows, I'm an ass.
That's why we get along so well.
And we were in a 3-bedroom house at the time, so we had already kind of set up the other bedroom for a kid, not knowing if it was going to be a boy or a girl or whatever. So we got him. Harlan is what we named him, who was Melinda's grandfather's name. And I had, me being raised in the South of North Carolina, always liked the name Harlan. So and so when I suggested that we name him Harlan because Wolfgang was denied and Omar was denied. I went with Harlan, her grandfather, which she really liked. So that's what we named him. But he spelled it different. I had never seen the spelling. I always knew Harlan as Harlan. He spelled it Harlin, Harlan. So,
okay.
So I lost the spelling war on that one. So even when I spelled Maddie with an IE, and Melinda was like, it's why? Just losing on all fronts apparently with the children's names. But yeah, so, and they were 15 months apart. So it was very difficult as well. As we used to jokingly call them the almost twins. It was God. It was so hard when they were little, but when they got older, it was really great. So I do have to admit, as much. And Harlan was a very difficult infant as well. He ended up catching RSV, ended up going to Stanford for a couple of weeks. Basically, it's a cold virus, but for infants, it's really, really bad. So, and he ended up having like breathing difficulties afterwards. So one of the things with him was me and Melinda used to joke, if Harlan was our first kid, he would have been our only kid. It was that difficult of a baby. His sister was so easy. But he was a very hard baby, but I love that guy so much. So we always had issues with him in the afternoon. We laid him down to nap and stuff like that. And he would just wake up sometimes and later on, he'd just be in this horrible mood. I would sometimes have to just hold him and restrain him so he wouldn't hurt himself. For sometimes half hour, 45 minutes. He was just going berserk. And you'd be surprised how strong a baby is.
My kid can bench press 25 pounds.
Yeah, and we later found out we sent him for a sleep test, and he has sleep apnea, so he was never sleeping at night. And we learned he would stop breathing 50 times an hour,
Oh, wow.
almost every minute, right? So no wonder he was so freaking cranky at yeah, 3 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, right? Just he's a kid, he's tired, doesn't know how to convey that, right? What's wrong with me? So
Yeah.
so we ended up
You
getting
never
like a
hit
CPAP.
REM.
Huh?
I say you never hit REM.
Yeah.
If you can't hit REM, you're literally going crazy because your brain is not able to relax.
Yeah. So we ended up, he got a CPAP machine when he was like maybe 3, 3 or 4, and he would wear it sometimes at night. He'd take it off, and when he was a kid, right? I mean, hell, adults don't like wearing CPAP machines, so I don't blame them, right? But that was one of the things that we had to deal with him. But our own health insurance and through the state helped us get that and take the test for him and figure that out, and we got the CPAP machine pretty much free. So
That's fantastic.
yeah, so so anything like that, he was both my kids were like in physical therapy and stuff like that as well. So state took care of all that for you. So if you go through the foster system, and like I'm gonna say this, California, where I'm from, where we adopted our 3 kids from, is totally my experience. But this should be universal for foster care. The foster system should be set up. It helps you to help them, take care of them, to make sure that kids well cared for. Unlike if you adopt a child from overseas. The one story that sticks out to me, and this is one of the countries me and Melinda looked at, was Russia. And that one story with that woman who adopted a kid from Russia and was having so much trouble with them, put him on a plane, little child, and sent them back to Russia. Nowhere, like nowhere to go, no family, nothing like that. I don't know if you remember that story.
I do, yeah.
But Russia was pissed off about that and was kind of like, okay, no more adoptions to the United States, which honestly, I don't freaking blame them. But I still think of the kids there that could get good families here. So that's one of the things to really consider. So when you see the stories of like Madonna and Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, adopting these children overseas, they really do have their own wherewithal to take care of that child, to make sure that child gets there. Regular people like me and John, if we were to adopt a kid like that, and that kid has mental and emotional issues and or maybe even physical issues, all of the above, 1 or 2 of them, that's all on you, and you get no help. You don't get any help from Russia from to help take care of that child. That's all on you. So I think that's something that isn't talked about at all when people think about that. And so say what you want about Angelina Jolie, Brad Pitt, Madonna, whatever like that, but John's gonna laugh when I say this. God bless them for adopting children like that.
I could not laugh, dude. In that vein, like you, they're my heroes. I mean, to reach out and pluck a children out of, in Angelina Jolie's case, almost exclusive poverty, and say, you're gonna live, you're gonna make it, and we're gonna make sure that you do well in life. And how many kids does she have now? Like 8, 10? It's a crazy amount. It's a crazy amount of kids. I mean, even with having like servants to help you, that's still a crazy amount of kids.
Yeah.
And to do something like that, like I said, you're my hero because of this. Honestly, Angelina Jolie is a hero because of that, reaching out and really, in her case, spending her fortune to help children in absolute need. I cannot fault anybody for doing that.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that's just not talked about, and I've seen them get crap from other people and social media on the internet and stuff like that. Or
Absolutely.
You know what? Don't. They can, and they do. I have some friends that are really well off, who try to have children, couldn't, ended up, they talked to us, talked about adopting, and they ended up never doing it. So And it makes me sad. It actually kind of bothers me. This is me. I'm going to say, to me, it's even kind of selfish. If you have the wherewithal to help any one child, and you're choosing not to, right? You're choosing not to help a child, when you are definitely comfortable, if not more than comfortable, to support a family, even of one. So one of the things we learned in the classes through foster care was, this is just Santa Clara County. I don't know about the rest of the state of California, but at any given moment in foster care in Santa Clara County, there are 2,000 children in foster care. Santa Clara County alone, 2,000. One of the things we learned when we take the classes is that they say if 1% of American families adopted one child out of foster care, there would be no children in foster care. So there's a little less than, I think the numbers were like 300 something thousand children in foster care throughout the United States. So this was like 10 years ago though, so I don't know about now, but just telling you what they told me back then.
Right.
And that's one of the things that, it's 1% of American families. So yeah, it bothers me. Like I said, I adopted 3, so you guys got to step up.
So where did your third child come from?
Okay, third child was also from foster care. My wife badgered me for like a year to adopt a third child, because I had always wanted 2 kids, boy and a girl, one of each. Bam, we had that. They were close in age. After 5, after not sleeping for 4 years, I was kind of like, oh, thank God. diapers at the same time, and potty training, and once they got older, it was awesome. I had never really, well, I used to think about having twins, and obviously having twins is really by chance, obviously, but the having them so close in age was really great. Once they got older, when they were young, man, not that I didn't love them, and not that I didn't enjoy the experience, or enjoy the experience, but definitely made it easier to have 2 kids such close in age, and they became really good friends too. I mean,
It's kind of like having a built-in friend. My brother and I are 14 months apart, so we're Irish twins. That's really a thing, and so don't get all bent out of shape that I say I'm Irish. I can say it. But yeah, it honestly, going through school until we got to school, it was like having a built-in friend. It truly was.
My brother and sister are 13 months apart.
So yeah,
my younger siblings.
A lot of times, especially when there's only 2, you'll develop a language. It's more of a shorthand than anything else between the 2 of you. And if there's a third child that's a year or 2 or 3 years behind you, it's that child kind of gets left out. However, because they're the baby, they get a lot more attention from the parents. So there's a little bit of push and pull there. But yeah, I remember shorthand with my brother. I don't remember very much of it anymore, but I remember having that connection.
The connection.
Yeah, right.
So like me and my siblings, I'm like a little more than 4 years older than my sister, who's the middle child. And I never, until my senior year in high school, she was a freshman. That was the only time we'd ever been in school together. And so we just kind of had, and then my brother, obviously a year or 2 behind her in school. And so we just never had that connection with my siblings really growing up. Not until we moved to California, and then I went to college, and my sister graduated from Growing High, and we were our friends kind of mixing it all up a little bit. Because my sister just turned 50, so my brother's 49. So, and I just turned 53 this month. So,
happy birthday. I know you had a great time.
Yeah, so went to a concert last night, Flogging Molly and the Violent Femmes. And I'm gonna go see Bleachers on Saturday night. So still got it going on. But
so
back.
I was gonna say, yeah, your third child from foster as well, right?
Yes. So like I said, so my wife had badgered me about a third kid, and I was like, I don't know what you're saying to me. I don't know what language you're saying. I don't understand you at all. we only talked about 2 kids. We got 2 kids, a boy and a girl. It's perfect. And she badgered me for a year before I finally said, okay, we can adopt a third kid. but it can't be a newborn. I was like, no more newborns. Like, why would you put yourself to it's got to be at least 1 year old. And we ended up getting Jackson, and he had just turned 1 in November 14. Like, his birthday's the 13th, so it's coming up. And we met him on the day after Thanksgiving, so in 2014. And we ended up getting him probably about a month after that from his foster parents that were fostering him in Morgan Hill. This great older couple, and they fostered kids, and they did babies. Like, they basically had him since he was an infant, and he was just this great loving kid. Well, I love one. I always jokingly tell people, if they're under 1, I break out in hives when I'm around. Oh my God. But one, they're walking, they're not talking, but they talk to you. And it's just such a great fun age. I love toddlers. Yeah, God, he was such a great fun little kid. I miss him so much. But yeah, so we ended up getting him, and so he's a few years younger than the 2 older siblings. But yeah, it was great. The siblings loved him, the 2 older ones. He was really good. They got along really good. He was very attached to us like that. He's such an easygoing kid. It's depending on what you're looking for, check out foster care, because it really is a great program. And they're there to help you succeed, to help that child succeed. So and one of the interesting things I learned when I went through the system and ended up adopting our first child, I actually had friends who went through the foster system that I never knew. It's just not something we talked about. One of my best friends from college was like, "Yeah, I'm foster kid. I went through the foster system, aged out." And I had to hear. He told me his horror stories too, of the system, and what happened to him as a young adult, trying to survive out there. And we met at San Jose State, and he was a good 10 years older than me. So he's like in his 40s going back to San Jose State. Finally got his degree in public relations with me. Yeah, there's, the older ones that look at older children too, if you can. And, everyone wants the babies. I'd say, don't get a baby. I say, get a toddler. If you don't like sleeping, get a baby. But those older kids, I was like, you can get a kid that's already potty trained.
Well, and
older kids, man.
Absolutely, and that's what I was going to say. When you reach out for older kids, preteen, teenagers, young teenagers, they've already been through the system, and they tend to be either hyper vigilant in how they reach out to people. They're very closed, and you really, really need to just love them.
With PTSD, they're traumatized. They're jaded, right? So,
yeah,
but who wouldn't be?
Right, exactly. And like any child, if you really work hard to show them love, they will see it. Just support them. You don't even really have to, I don't want to say you don't want to have to love them, but because you have to love them. You have to be that person to them. If you're going to pull them into your home, don't pull them into your home temporarily. It's a permanent thing.
Open heart, man.
Exactly.
Really, you hear those horror stories? The horror stories you hear about the foster care system, it's those people that are doing it for the money and don't care about the child. So it's horrible. But the foster system's so hard up for people, whether single or parent couples and family, to adopt. It's like I said, it's free to take the classes. So if you had the time, you could do it. Now I can just collect this money from having this kid in my house, whatever.
Right. The being in Gilroy, and Donovan knows this as well. There's the Independent Order of Odd Fellows and Rebecca's home here in Gilroy. It's a beautiful home, and they support foster through their programs, and they work very, very hard to help you out, very, very hard, and it's really worth talking to them or the foster system that's in your home state. Um, just it's worth it. I mean, my wife and I, like I said, we discussed it and we just weren't in a position at the time, but it's still at the top of our minds. It's
You
still
guys would be like
something we'd like to do.
grandparents.
What's that?
You like grandparents to the teenagers in the house.
Exactly. Well, you know, you get teenagers, you got somebody that can actually clean up after you when you drool, and but you just to reach out and help. They understand. They understand what you're doing. They may not show you the recognition that you think they should right away, but deal with that. If you continue to work, they will come back.
Yeah,
They will
you
come
talk
home.
about connecting. There's the issues with connecting. Why do I want to connect with this family? And they're just going to send me away again, right?
Right, exactly. I'm sure that's in the front of their mind the whole time. If they've been through the system, for any length of time, 10 years, 15 years, of course that's going to be in the front of their mind because they have been shuffled.
Yeah.
So they don't form connections easily. And it may take some time, but it's when they do, when they finally call you mommy or daddy. I know Donovan's going to cry. It's the thing. It's the thing. Okay. Just try and do that.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, I can't tell you enough. How great the foster system is, and how my experience was awesome. I mean, we did have some issues. Maddie, the father, was trying to have wanted visits with her and things such as that. Ended up having a paternity test, and it wasn't his child, so that he dropped out of the picture. But when we got Harlan, firstborn boys in Asian families, both my older children are Vietnamese. Asian firstborn sons are a big deal in Asian families, and he was trying really, really hard. He wanted to get the child, wanted to get him, wanted visits and stuff like that, and we had to go through all that stuff. So it's hard. It's not exactly easy necessarily. And actually, as I'm saying this and complaining about it, ours was actually relatively easy overall. But he ended up he was in a gang. I guess still in a gang, and ended up going to prison. And he was fighting from prison for rights to Harlan. And then we showed up in court one day, and he was there, and gave up all his rights to his son.
Wow.
It was actually, I mean, I'm getting misty eyed thinking about it. That's something I had to do. That's a hard thing to do, right? But I guess he figured it out. Maybe this is the place for them, and I can't provide for them as much as we can. And I remember I'm crying about it right now. Even to see someone do that is really hard. So it's
really see how actually big somebody's heart is when they recognize these people can do better than I can for this child. That's
I was surprised at how much it touched me to see him do that. So
yeah. Can I ask you, did the foster system help you in your legal battles there?
Oh yeah, it was all done through the county. So the lawyer,
okay.
So we didn't have to pay for that. That's all done through the foster system and stuff like that. So yeah, so all three of my kids had lawyers and stuff like that to represent them in the courts, and who had all of their history and knew what was going on and knew the parents. Okay. So yeah. One of the things with Jackson was his mother is homeless. The story was is that she didn't like hospitals and had all her children on her own. Apparently he was born in a church parking lot is what they told us. No confirmation on that. That was what they told us. And that was her fifth child to go into the system. So
you said fifth, 5?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
So she has mental issues apparently and stuff like that, and basically just doesn't want anything to do with society. But she keeps having these kids. All of her kids went into the system. So yeah, so it was an interesting story. I mean, I hate saying things like, because this is theirs. I'm telling you my kid's story, and that's one of the things, it's their story to tell, right? But I'm just giving you the background on the kids that I adopted. And so he was super easy because there was no one to fight for him really. So it's just horrible to say, but worked out for us. And
Right.
when we adopted him in less than a year, so it was really good.
Yeah, you said your first two children are Vietnamese background.
Yes.
Is Jackson as well?
Jackson's actually half African American, and we're assuming Caucasian. That we didn't have any information on the father.
Oh,
So
okay.
his mother's African American.
And they're all doing well.
Yeah, they're all doing great, all getting big. Jackson turns, let me see, Maddie turns 14 this month.
Wow.
Jackson turns 8 in November, and Harlan turns 13 in into January. So
Wow. So they're all close.
birthdays are close. Yeah.
That must be rough with Christmas thrown in the middle of all of that as well.
Not too bad, yeah. Actually, they're just far enough they don't have to deal with that.
That's nice. Anyway, Donovan, I want to thank you. I know this was a hard for you to reach all the way back into that a little bit, and I really appreciate you telling us this story about the foster system and the adoption, and what you went through, how your journey to get your kids was. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And if anyone has any questions about that, they could direct them to the site, and I'll get back to you on that. But it's really straightforward. Like I said, just if you call up your county foster care and social work, they can say, here's when the classes start. And like I said, it's free to go take the classes. And then once you take the classes, you get certified. Depending on your house, you get. So we wanted the little kids. We had to put locks in all the drawers and all the cabinets.
Right.
So you had to make sure all that knives were out of reach and things like that. Granted, they were babies, but still. So and once your house passes inspection, you're free to adopt. So some states have websites where they have pictures and the background history of the kids that are up for adoption.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and some don't. So I kind of hate and love that at the same time. It's kind of like, oh, shopping for a child. Oh, look at this one. So and yeah, it was. It depends, but per state. And like I said, I'm just telling you my perspective and experience from California, which was actually really great. Can't complain about it. But check out if you're interested in looking for to adopt a child. Check out the foster care system. It really is a good system, and it's there to help you to succeed and to help that child succeed, like I said earlier. So thank you, John, for letting me talk about this and my story. So
absolutely. Like I said, you're my hero because of this. Honestly, I as far as I know, I don't really know anyone else who has gone through this system or on either end of it, to be honest. But just the fact, I mean, that tells me your heart's bigger than your whole body. I love you for it. So thank you all very, very much for checking this episode out. Like I said, we are going to be doing more episodes about civics. This is a volunteer type civic situation. He really took his responsibilities as a citizen seriously. Again, thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell, and hopefully we'll see you again on another one. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you. Peace out.
Well, I'm Donovan, and John's here with us today. Thank you for joining us for the free exchange of ideas, and we'll see you next time on the next show. See ya.